So I'm gonna try to do this. Within 10 minutes. Or even less, but this is the Menstrual Cup Q&A for all the people who had questions. So I wrote down all your questions, and I'm gonna try to just kind of like fly through them and answer some of those questions. I have some props so I can show you, and we're just gonna get to it. Hi everyone who has joined me. All right, so I've been talking like all week about periods in the cup and different options, things that you can use for your period. But I love the cup, and a lot of people love the cup, and so I'm gonna just share some of the reasons why people love the cup. That when I did the questions in the stories, what a lot of people had to say. So most people love the cup because you just put it in and forget about it, and we'll talk about that. It's less toxic or non-toxic. It saves money. It's better for the environment. A lot of women experience less cramping. Some women experience shorter cycles, which is I'm one of those women. It's very comfortable. You don't have to change it as often. I mean, you can go up to 12 hours essentially wearing it. One person said, I don't dread my period anymore, which, I mean, I think that says a lot. And someone says it makes me feel cleaner, and you never run out of it because it lasts for years. So those are all the benefits to wearing the cup, all right? Now we're gonna talk about what it looks like, how you choose it, how you insert it, and some troubleshooting things, and go through some of the questions. So let me just pull up the questions that people asked. All right, so there are a lot of different brands out there. This happens to be the brand that I use, but there's a lot of different brands out there. So one of the first things that you can do is go to a website called putacupinit.com, putacupinit.com, and you go to that website and they have a quiz, and you can take the quiz if you know anything about like your cervix or just kind of about like your flow, and they will give you a list of ones that you can try based on how you answered the quiz. But you don't have to do it, but it's a good way to start. But so know that there's a lot of different brands out there. They're not all FDA compliant or approved. So you may see a bunch of brands that are selling it dirt cheap. And so I would just caution you a little bit, just because they're not well regulated, and you want to make sure that the material is quality and not flimsy, one, because of messes, and two, because it's going inside of your vagina. So naturally you want it to be the safest thing as possible. So I'm going to show you this one. So this one is salt, and it's made from 100% medical grade silicone. All right, it's typically like silicone or like latex rubber, but this is made from 100% medical grade silicone. So I'm gonna show you what it looks like. So this is sanitized, of course. All right, so this is like the size, right? It looks like this. And so this, it's like got this little rubber feel to it. They hold anywhere, I think about like 25 to 30 mLs. So, so about like 1 ounce of blood that it can hold. So it holds more than some women put out during their cycle, since we talked about that. But this is the size. And so it comes with a little tip. And this tip, some people kind of cut it off, not cut it off, but some people trim it a little bit if they don't want. It all depends on the positioning of your cervix and how far up you have it, but some people can trim if they want to. But this is the size. It has little holes on the side, and the little holes that are on the side, they help with the seal, okay? So this is what it looks like. This is your vagina, okay? All right, so I'm gonna try to do this without laughing. So typically, number one, you want to, when you're selecting it, you do the quiz naturally, and they're gonna make some recommendations. So usually they say, like, if you're someone with like a lighter flow, or like you're a teenager or someone who hasn't given birth or whatnot, that you tend to go for like the smaller ones. If you're someone who's given birth, or you tend to have a heavier flow, because I know some of you guys were concerned because you have a heavier flow. If you tend to have a heavier flow, they say you want to go with the larger one or the heavy one. And so, but that may not be the case for you. So a lot of times it's really just trial and error and seeing what works for you. So so that's how you would select it. So the way, when you're inserting it, you don't need to lubricate it, all right? If you wanted to do the rim, you can, but you really don't need to, all right? And so typically it's just a matter of just kind of like forming, just folding it. There's different types of folds they teach you. There's like a U fold, a C fold, a 7 fold, and all that. But whatever fold works for you, all right? Like whatever fold works for you that way, or you know, you want to do it more of like a U shape. But you figure out what fold works for you, and you get into the position and you put it in similarly to like a tampon. But typically what you want to do is you want to make sure you wash your hands, you know, soap and like, you know, gentle water and like some gentle soap. You want to make sure you clean it first. So with some water and gentle soap, so nothing scented. And then to get started, you figure out your fold, like which way you're gonna do it. You get into a position so you can do like a squat, or you can just be sitting on the toilet and just kind of like put your leg up, or if you have a little stool by your side, the easiest thing honestly is just to sit on the toilet and just put your leg up. This is you. So all you do is literally you just insert it in, right? And so for some, so it should, ideally you want it to just like pop open in there. But for some people that may not be the case. And for some people, you may have to kind of twist it a little bit, twist it around, and then you'll feel the pop. And it's not, it may startle you a little bit depending on your positioning, what position you may be in. So it may startle you a little bit, but it really shouldn't hurt at all. And if you really want to make sure that it's fully popped and open in there, what you do is you just kind of run your finger around. Let me take it out. You just kind of like run your finger around it to make sure that it feels like it's open, that you're not feeling any dents or any folds. All right. That's how you know that it's fully open. But when it's open, you know, well, let me do the fold. When it's open, it's in there. And so when it's in there, it's in position. So I know some people are scared thinking like, well, what if it gets lost up there? You cannot lose it. I promise you, it can't get lost. If you understand the female anatomy, you know that there's no way for it to get lost. So don't worry about it getting lost, because that's not gonna happen. And so once it's in there, so when you want to take it out, all you do is you gotta pinch the base of it. You don't tug at the low tip, because you're gonna feel the pressure, because there's a seal, and so you're gonna be pulling, you know, on your vaginal wall. So you don't want to tug. You literally just want to feel for it. Get the pinch the base. I hope I'm explaining this and you can see it. You just want to pinch the base of it a little bit and just slowly. You're not moving it around. You're not bending. Slowly, just removing it like this. But because it'll be like this, you're just removing it straight. And then you just pour the contents in the toilet. I know some people are worried about a mess. I've never had a mess. And I'm a little, you know, I've never had a mess. I've never had a mess, so you don't have to worry about that. And you literally just dump the contents. Now, some people may say, well, you know, I'm having a hard time getting it out. Well, you have to break the seal, because there's a seal. Once it opens up, it's sealed. There's like a seal that forms, and so you have to break the seal. So you have to pinch the base, you break the seal, and then you just slowly move it. If you're feeling pressure or a pulling, then you know that the seal is not broken. But I promise you, it sounds worse than it is. It's really, really easy. So once it's in there, you just, you know, that's it. You just leave it in there. So you really should not experience any leaking. But that again is going to be based on the size that you have, the positioning, whether or not you have it positioned correctly, and the type of flow that you have, right? And so usually what I do, I like to make sure that I have a backup method on the first day, because I tend to be like the people who are more on the heavier side. So on the first day, I just tend to have a backup, like an organic pad that I just put just in case. But it's not something that you will really need. What were some of the other questions? So how often do you change it? So again, it's gonna depend on your flow. If you are someone who's just like, you know, typical average, you're not like a heavier bleeder, you'll change it from 2 to 3 times a day. So initially the first day tends to be the heaviest day for people. That's when you'll change it the most. So you being, if you're the average person, may change it like 3 times. Me, someone else, I may change it 4 times in that first day. But if the flow is just kind of like died down a little bit, it's not the first day, then you can leave it for 12 hours. You put it in the morning, and then you remove it at night before bed and change it. So 2 times a day. Someone said, does it really work? Yes, it really works. It's like a tampon. The only difference is the tampon absorbs like the blood that's flowing. This just captures it and collects it, and you just take it out and you dump it out. And this actually holds more. They say that it holds 2 times the amount of a super absorbent tampon. So this actually holds more than what a tampon does. And that's part of the reason why you can leave it in there longer. But you don't want to leave it longer than 12 hours because, again, you want to decrease the chances of like any sort of like infection or anything. So you just take it out when it needs to be taken out, and you just dump it out. All right. Well, I just want to see. I've never done a live, so I don't even know how to work this thing. All right. So I'm just going to go to the questions and like the troubleshooting. All right. So some questions, so someone said, can you wear it overnight? Yes, you can wear it overnight. Like I said, if we're not talking about the heaviest day, you put it on in the morning, and then you remove it at night before bed and reinsert it at night. And all you do is when you take it out, you dump the contents out, you rinse it, you rinse and clean it. So you just want to use like a mild soap that you just kind of like, put in there and just kind of clean it a little bit. You don't want to use anything scented because you don't want anything scented in your vagina. And then you just reinsert it. But yes, you can wear it overnight. Does it hurt being pulled out like a dry tampon? No, it should not hurt at all. Literally, you just pinch the base and you just pull it out slowly. If you want to, you can just kind of lightly, gently wiggle it around a little bit, but it's supposed to just come out. You're not leaning one way or another. You're literally just pulling it out straight. But you have to be in the position that you were in to insert it. You're in a position where you can easily just kind of pull it out. So every time you pee, you don't change it at all. No, you can pee, you can move your bowels, you can exercise, you can do whatever activities, whatever you typically do, and it will stay in place. Now, if you're someone, say, who's like we're gonna get real here. If you're someone who's like, say, super constipated, and you're doing a lot of bearing down, you may feel things kind of go down a little bit, but that's because you're bearing down. So the tissue and all the organs are kind of coming down a little bit because you're bearing down. So, but even if you have to move your bowels, it's not an issue. So you don't have to worry about that. Okay. So yes, it should not hurt at all when coming out. I do want to say, if you insert it, like when you put it in, if you start to feel like some discomfort, or you feel like you have like a urinary tract infection, this sensation or like sense of feeling like you need to pee, or that you're feeling some sort of pain, it's because it's not positioned. It's because it's not positioned correctly. So all you do is just remove it and try to reinsert it. You should not feel anything once it's in. Just a little pop that it's in place, but you should not feel pain. You shouldn't feel the sense of you wanting to go pee, or that feeling, if you've ever had a UTI, that feeling that lets you know that it's not positioned correctly. Someone said, how expensive are they? So most run, I want to say like $25 to like $35. There are many on the market that are very cheap, but again, quality is important, in making sure that you're buying from like a reputable place or brand, and making sure that it's FDA compliant. Because again, this is going inside your vagina, so you don't want something flimsy or something cheap or something that's made of a material that you're not really aware of. So just something to be mindful of. Someone said, once I tried one and it leaked and it didn't feel comfortable. So most likely it wasn't positioned properly. Maybe you didn't have the right size, and depending on and if it didn't feel comfortable, maybe it wasn't in right, because it really should feel comfortable. Like, you should not feel it at all once it's in. Okay, if you're feeling any discomfort at all, it's not positioned correctly. And if you're getting leaks, maybe you're a heavier flow and you need to get the heavy one, depending on the brand. One or two, you may just be someone who needs the backup on day 1 or day 2, depending on what your flow is like. Someone said, where do you get it? So again, there's different brands. You can order from Amazon. This particular brand, you can find it at Target. I don't know if like Walmart or other places have it, but Target, Amazon, you can, if you want to get this brand, but there's multiple different brands that are FDA approved that you can get. All right. What brand, and is it all non-toxic? So if you go to that website that I mentioned in the beginning, where you can take the quiz to help you figure out size, putacupinit.com. Based on what they recommend, you'll see some of the brands, and you'll see some of the FDA approved brands, or you can look up some of the brands, because like I said, there's a lot. And so you really want to make sure you're choosing one that is safe because it's going inside of you. And again, it's made of, this one is made of 100% medical grade silicone. So yes, it's safe. And it's like a solid silicone, not like a liquid silicone that has some risk associated with it. So this is not something that you have to worry about. So as I'm going through this, if you guys have any other questions, you can just ask. Someone said, okay, this is a really good question. Someone said, can it cause a prolapse? I'm assuming this person is asking because I want to say sometime last year, there was an article that was released from the BBC, and it had to do, and this went viral. It had to do with, I think, 1 or 2 women who reported a minor like prolapse or something. And so there's been no cases, there's been no studies, nothing to prove or to even link it or associate it with causing any sort of prolapse. That particular article, we don't know anything about those 2 women. Women who have given birth, women who've had chronic constipation or whatnot, like tend to be at high risk for developing a prolapse anyways. And there's different degrees of prolapse. And so we don't know whether or not they were bearing down a lot. We don't know whether or not what their past medical history is. So we can't say that that actually was the case. But those were 2 women somewhere in the UK, and and they were trying to link it to the cup. And so there's no cases to prove that actually is the case. And so for people who have no idea what I'm talking about, a prolapse is, all right, so you have your pelvic floor muscles, and they basically kind of keep, your organs up positioned in a particular position. And so what happens is when these muscles get weakened, it can cause one or more of the organs just to come down and to protrude near, like out of the vagina. And so just to kind of bulge down a little bit. And so, but that I don't want to go like get all medical, but that's what a prolapse is. Many women have a mild prolapse and don't even realize it. Again, if you've given birth, you're already someone who's at risk. If you're someone who suffered from like chronic constipation, like there's different risk factors. But no, so to answer your question, no, it does not cause a prolapse when you use it appropriately, and there's nothing to link it right now that we know of, no studies, nothing to even link it or indicate that there's an association. Someone said, and the only other thing I want to say about that is this is something that when I was more practicing with women, that I would tell them all the time to make sure you're doing your Kegel exercises. All women, especially if you've given birth, or like I said, you're concerned for like urinary incontinence, or you've experienced it, or you have constipation issues, all women should be doing Kegel exercises because you really want to strengthen your pelvic floor muscles. I'm not going to get into it, but if you guys want to know more about it, I can talk about that separately. Someone said how often to remove, clean, and reinsert. So I think I already talked about that, how often you would remove it. How often you clean it. You clean it every time you remove it. You just kind of give it a rinse, or you can use a gentle soap if you want to. But once your cycle is over, you want to make sure that you're sanitizing. You just want to make sure that it's as clean as possible. You can just boil it, like you would, like if you were boiling like a baby bottle or like the nipples of a bottle. You just boil it for a few minutes, or you can just pour like really hot water over it just to make sure that you're kind of, sanitizing it. But if you're someone who's, if you're cleaning it the way that you're supposed to and washing your hands before and after and all of that, then typically you wouldn't really worry about infection. Like you wouldn't really be worried about it being contaminated. What about when you're in public restrooms? So you really need to know your cycle, and you need to know where you are in your cycle. If you're like a heavy bleeder and you're in your heavy day, and I can only leave this in maybe for like 5 hours, then you just kind of plan. But even if you're in a restroom, you can use it. If it's a private restroom, it's the same way as if you're in your bathroom, you'd be doing the same thing. If it's a public restroom, then, you can just wipe it until you get home. Like you can just wipe it with some tissue, or some people carry wipes, unscented. You don't want scented products in your vagina. But if you have wipes, then you can just wipe it. But literally after you pour the contents, anything that's just kind of left, you can just wipe it off until you get home and you're more comfortable. But you probably won't really need to change it when you're out, just because if you're the average woman, you're leaving it in there for like 12 hours. So that really shouldn't be an issue for you. This is another good one. Someone said, is there any issue with TSS? So TSS is toxic shock syndrome. And a lot of people who wear tampons or who are concerned about tampons know about toxic shock syndrome. Now, I want to say that TSS is rare, okay? At some point, I don't know if it was like the 60s, 70s, or 80s, there were higher incidences of TSS because of a particular brand of tampon that was super absorbent. And basically, it was linked to this type of bacterial infection, but that brand was taken off the market, and since then there's been a significantly lower occurrence of TSS, where, like I said, it's a rare thing, but of course it's a serious thing. So when it comes to TSS, when it comes to the cup, they feel that because TSS comes from a bacterial infection, they feel because this is non-porous, they feel that it's able to resist bacterial growth. And so because of that, technically, it would be less likely to cause TSS. Now, the best way of making sure that that's not an issue is to make sure that you're following the hygienic rules, right? You're washing your hands. You are rinsing it or cleaning it after. You're sanitizing it once your cycle is over because you're putting it away. And you're making sure that obviously your hands are clean. You're not introducing bacteria into your vagina. But so to answer your question, the risk for TSS is still there because it is something that is inside your vagina that's sitting there for hours, right? But when compared to the tampon, they found that the risk may be a little bit less because it can resist bacterial growth. I sent a question using the question feature here. You may have to just ask me on here. Yeah, you may have to just ask me on here because I wrote down all the questions that I think I got. So someone said, does it work for heavy bleeders? Yes, it does. It's just a matter of size. You just want to get a size that's for a heavy flow. And even if you get a size, and if you're a really heavy bleeder and on your day 1 or day 2 it's really heavy, just use the backup method. Like I said, you can wear a panty liner, or if you need more than that, get an organic pad and just put it there, and you'll get a sense of what your flow is like with this so that you know if you do need to wear one or not. And again, one of the benefits that a lot of women have reported is shorter cycles and less cramping. And for me, I was sold because those were two things that I absolutely needed. Oh yes, yeah, does it work for heavy bleeders? I have a vision of Dexter, huge mess. You will not have a mess if you take it out the way that I mentioned, okay? Literally, you grab, hold on, you pinch the base. Pinch the base. When you do that, you break the seal, okay? Once that seal is broken, you literally just bring it down. There's no tugging, there's no pressure. You're not doing it quickly. You're literally just bringing it down, and then it ends up in your hand, and then you just pour it out. And you'll get a sense of how much blood really is in there. But I promise you, you will not have a mess everywhere, okay? You will not have a mess everywhere if you do it exactly like I just showed you. So don't worry about that. I think, yeah, all right, so I think those were all the questions. So if there's any other questions, just let me know, but I definitely would recommend the cup. Like I said, for all the reasons that I've mentioned in the beginning, a lot of women love it. I do remember someone mentioned like a heavier, someone who's like a heavier set said that it didn't work for them or it wouldn't work for them. And I can understand why, because it all comes down to positioning, like when you're putting it in, right? And so depending on size, as long as you're able to reach to get into your vagina, then there should be no issues. But if for some reason, based on a certain body types, you're having a hard time getting in your vagina, then maybe that wouldn't work for you. But the cup is something, I promise you, like once you get the hang of it and you get past the learning curve, you will not go back. You won't go back to what you were doing before. There is a learning curve. Make sure that your fingernails are not long, because you can accidentally pinch the inside of your vagina and it hurts. So make sure that your finger is not long, like the ones that's going to be going in there. But that's it guys. And then once you're done, like I said, and for storing it when you're done, you just use the bag that they send. So once you've sanitized it, your cycle's over, you just put it in this little baggie. Close the little baggie. If you want to keep this, which I kept because it's easier so my kids don't find it or get into it, you just put it away, and then you see it again the following month. So easy. So if there's no other questions, I'm gonna end up ending the live. Boston Plant Stylist, girl, Send me the question now. I think I answered all of them. You can just put it in here. Otherwise, if there's no other questions, I'm gonna be done. Will you link some for us? I might just link the website. Can I put it in here? I've never done this. But the website is, I'm gonna put the website. I don't know if it's gonna work. This is a website where you take the quiz. And of course, spell check is not my friend right now. This is where you do the quiz and you can see the different brands that are FDA approved and compliant. But again, if you Google, you're gonna find a ton of different brands, some very, very cheap. But again, quality is important because it's going inside of you. I don't know if I can pin it. Yes, I can. Okay, so that's the website, putacupinit.com. And so you can see some of the different brands. You can learn a little bit more about it. You can see frequently asked questions and you can figure out size. Oh, is this what this is? Oh, okay, sorry, Wes. I just noticed that there's a comment section on here. Because again, I told you I've never done this before. Is there a max amount of time you can wear it for the day? I think I mentioned it, 12 hours. 12 hours. Can you sleep with it? Yes. Should I use a pad as backup? Once I start using it, yes. If you're a heavy bleeder and your day 1 or day 2 is heavy, especially if it's for the first time, use a pad because you want to get a sense of how many hours you can go on your heaviest day before any leakage. But that's if it's positioned correctly. If it's positioned correctly, you shouldn't have any leakage. Which brand do you use and what do you like about it? I use the Salt brand. But again, all our bodies are very different and different people have like a low-lying cervix. Some people have a higher cervix. Some people's cervix, just take the quiz and you'll see. And if you haven't had a child and your period is not that heavy, then typically you can just go with like the regular size. But if you're a heavier bleeder, you might want to go with like whatever they have for a heavy flow. Will I feel it as I wear it all day? You will not even feel it whatsoever. And if it's positioned correctly, even the little tip, that little long part, I can't even think of the word, you shouldn't even feel it because it should be up enough where you're not gonna feel it. And if your cervix happens to be a lower lying one, some people just kind of clip the bottom a little bit so that there's nothing hanging out, but you will not feel it, I promise you. I think that's it. Those are all the questions. All right, so there's no other questions. If anything else comes up, y'all can just send me a DM, but I think I answered it all in here, including the troubleshooting. Again, it can't get lost up there. If you understand your female anatomy, you know you can't lose it up there, so you don't have to worry about it. It's easy to get out. There's like no missing string because there's no string. You literally put yourself in the same position that you were in when you inserted it and just get the base, slightly pinch the base a little bit just to break the seal, to break that suction, and you just slowly bring it down. There's no mess if you do it that way. And if you're experiencing any pain or discomfort or feeling the urge to pee, it's because it's not positioned correctly. And once you position it correctly, that urge will go away, okay? And I think that's it. So there's no more questions. So that's it, y'all. That's the cup, the Q&A. I tried to answer all the questions that I could. If you need a backup method while you try to figure out what works for you, go for the organic pad or organic panty liner, or whatever is safe. Don't do like the commercial pads and tampons because we've already talked about that. But so one last call. If there's no other questions, I'm gonna end here. I answered the question about TSS, toxic shock syndrome. I answered the question about the concern for prolapse, whether uterine or bladder, prolapse or rectal. So you don't have to worry about the prolapse. That BBC article, there's nothing to prove it. We know nothing about the women, so we have no idea if they even already had a prolapse or if they were very high risk or if they weren't using it correctly. Oh, and the only other thing I want to say before I leave, people have a tendency to like bear down to try to bring it down so it's easier for them to take it out. Don't bear down. You should not be bearing down more than you do to gently move your bowels. But if you're bearing down like someone who's super constipated, you're potentially putting your pelvic floor muscles at risk of weakening, which is gonna put you at risk you know, which is going to put you at risk of like incontinence, put you at risk for prolapse, just normally for people who bear down, not even like talking about this. So all women should really be doing Kegel exercises, and maybe it's something that we may need to talk about a little bit, but do not bear down like you're constipated. Don't do that. All right, I think. All right, y'all, that's it. So thank you for joining me. If any other questions come up, let me know. I'm going to try to save this. We'll see what happens when I end it, if I can save it, but I'm going to try to save it in case any other questions end up coming up for anyone else who watches this after. All right?